Well, hello there, you're watching the press preview. A first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the political editors of the Daily Mirror and The Sun, Pippa Crerar and Harry Cole. Welcome to both of you on what is another very busy night once again. So to the front pages then, let us start with The Guardian. It says Boris Johnson has prompted fresh outrage as allegations have now emerged that a birthday party was held for him at Downing Street during lockdown in June of 2020. That's also the lead story for The Times. Johnson held lockdown birthday party at number 10, their headline. The Eye describes the Prime Minister's problems as growing. Oh, what a surprise. The Star is not impressed by the latest allegations of lockdown breaking parties in Downing Street. The Sun tells the Prime Minister, you can't have your cake and eat it, Boris. Former Brexit negotiator Lord Frost says the planned rise in national insurance must be scrapped in order to help the economy. That's the lead story for The Mail. US President Joe Biden is preparing to send thousands of soldiers to Eastern Europe in the event of a Russian invasion of Ukraine, reports The Telegraph. According to the Financial Times, NATO member states have begun sending fighter jets and ships to parts of Eastern Europe in case conflict in Ukraine escalates quickly. The Express leading on the Prime Minister's words of warning to the Russian President Vladimir Putin that any invasion would be painful and bloody. And the Metro has the headline, NATO jets ready to scramble. Just a quick reminder too that by scanning the QR code that you'll see on your screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us and hear what our guests have to say. So let's bring in Pippa Crerar and Harry Cole. Two big stories there, NATO and Ukraine and Russia, national insurance too, but dominating for a number of newspapers, once again, events at Downing Street, including your paper, The Sun, Harry.
Yeah, I mean, there's obviously a massive growing international crisis on the Ukraine border. Boris Johnson tonight speaking to world leaders, including Biden, including the heads of NATO, the heads of the EU. Yet back at home has been dragged into yet another allegation about Partygate. Now, this time last week, there was almost a sort of tinderbox feeling in Downing Street that was slightly, in Westminster, that was slightly abated by the defection of a Tory MP to Labour, which seemed to actually calm the mood down. But there was a feeling from a lot of Tory critics that actually one more big revelation and it might just push those letters, those crucial letters for calling for a leadership, calling for a vote of confidence in the Prime Minister over the threshold of 54. So we'll have to wait and see tomorrow what happens there. Now, number 10 are pushing back quite hard. They're saying, look, this is, the Prime Minister was just out of hospital. He was, his staff gathered to say happy birthday. He was there for 10 minutes. A little bit harder to explain why his interior designer was one of those guests when at this exact same time, police were patrolling around the country, giving fines to people who have birthday parties, saying these are not exempt. So it remains to be seen quite how much that anger will build up again in the run-up to the Sue Gray report, expected later this week. But it seems to be the scandal the Prime Minister just can't seem to move on from.
Yes, indeed. And in terms of the interior designer, she was present in Downing Street on the 19th of June, working on the refurbishment. She was not invited, their statement said, to any birthday celebrations for the Prime Minister, but she was in the Cabinet Office waiting to talk to him. So it was fortuitous timing, I guess, that she was there in the brief less than 10 minutes that he was. Leading a number of other newspapers, The Mirror, I think we might have as well. If not, yeah, well, let's have a look at that as well. Your paper then, Pippa. Clearly it's been a focus for you. PM's number 10 birthday bash in lockdown. And that is a photograph, is it not, of an official visit he made to a school that day in Hertfordshire, where school children in the school had presented him with that birthday cake and sung to him, in fact. How serious do you see these allegations? Because there's twin events, aren't there? One in the Cabinet Office, this surprise, birthday do arranged by his wife, so the allegation goes from ITV News, and then a later event, which Downing Street says was outside and not in the flat.
Yes, so the first alleged gathering in the cabinet room itself of about 30 people, his wife Carrie leading a rendition amongst staff of Happy Birthday as she and apparently the designer Lulu Little presented a birthday cake. Number 10 hasn't denied this was a party, which is quite interesting. Another shift, another iteration in their response to these many allegations of lockdown busting gatherings. And they don't appear tonight to be trying to justify it as some sort of work event that the Prime Minister just popped into. There's no real claim of that. And anyway, even if it was a work event, why were his wife and interior designer there? So it sounds as if, and we're also told that, or I understand that Sue Gray was already aware of this gathering, so it's not likely to delay her report findings any longer than these new allegations already had done. But almost the most serious suggestion, which is denied by Number 10, is that the party then moved upstairs and there was a gathering of the Prime Minister's family, potentially his siblings, his friends. I don't know who's on that guest list, but inside the Number 10 flat. And of course, that is more serious because it's at a time when social gatherings were banned indoors, and there was no excuse for people that weren't members of the Number 10 staff to be in Downing Street. The other gathering, the birthday gathering downstairs, all the staff were working there. Number 10 are trying to downplay its significance tonight, sending out ministers suggesting that the PM just popped in. Downing Street is saying that the gathering later in the evening actually took place in the garden. But sources from a variety of media organisations now tonight are saying that's not the case. It was upstairs. And of course, this isn't the first time that there have been allegations about gatherings in the Number 10 parties in the Number 10 flat. There was more at the weekend, naming two of Carrie Johnson's friends who worked at the time in the Cabinet Office and not in Number 10. Again, they claimed that it was a work event that they were there for. And going way back to the end of November, that very first story that we ran at the Mirror about a couple of these get-togethers also quoted sources suggesting that there had been parties in the flat as well. Again, denied by Number 10 and Mrs. Johnson's spokesman. But, there are so many allegations now that you almost feel overwhelmed by them. And, Sue Gray has certainly got her work cut out trying to establish the facts on all of these many get-togethers.
Yes, and just on the Cabinet Room one, the afternoon one, just after 2 p.m, a group of staff, Downing Street said, working in Number 10 that day, gathered briefly in the Cabinet Room after a meeting to wish PM a happy birthday. He was there for less than 10 minutes. So stressing the work element of it still, actually, for that one. The Eye, Johnson's problems grow with birthday late party. It's the Eye's front page. The Guardian as well, again with that picture from 19th of June 2020, Johnson faces fresh outrage over birthday party in Number 10. We've got another one, let me see. Let's see the Star. Should we be surprised? Bozo had a... How do you pronounce it? Bozo. How do you pronounce it? Bozo. Sorry, Bozo had a big birthday bash with 30 chums while the rest of us were all in lockdown. Oh, what a surprise. So my question is, while we wait for Sue Gray, is... whatever she finds, we need to interpret that they did treat themselves differently, don't we, Harry? That all these events they had, they didn't see that they were following the same rules.
Yeah, and in a weird way, I think actually the sort of the hype of waiting for Sue Gray, as we've launched a million memes online and even some online poetry about the wait for Sue Gray, and this report is, I think, a huge amount of expectations being put on this report that actually, by all accounts, won't be, not least its own remit, won't be making a judgment on this. Now, the mood I get actually from the people that really want to knife Boris Johnson and want to get rid of him is that, it doesn't really matter the waiting for Sue Gray. They're going to find a way to keep on punching that bruise. We've seen in the last sort of 5 days from the Brexiteer right, we've seen these allegations of blackmail and bullying by party whips. Then yesterday, on Sunday, we saw sort of shocking allegations from Nusrat Ghani, another member of the sort of powerful 1922 committee who were sort of agitating against the Prime Minister. And we saw, of course, Dom Cummings again pop up today saying, look, a very menacing social media intervention to say to Tory MPs, look, if you want this nightmare to end, you've got to get rid of him. He's saying there are cabinet office officials actively working to oust the Prime Minister this week. So in a weird way, Sue Gray is almost sort of one of many problems on the horizon. And frankly, even Boris Johnson's closest allies today have been slightly conceding that his enemies can smell blood. There's a momentum to it now. The sort of drumbeat of negative stories is going to keep going. And lots of people that do not like Boris Johnson are not going to rest until they get him.
So, sorry, Cabinet Office officials, do they mean civil servants or special advisors?
Well, it was very loosely worded, actually. Right. It said officials in Downing Street and the Cabinet Office were preparing to push him off the ice this week, which is quite an incendiary claim. I think on another day it would be a remarkable claim. And notably, he has come out today and said that he won't be cross-examined or interviewed or meet face-to-face with Sue Gray under the proviso of apparently he's worried that the PM will twist his words. But some scepticism tonight from some senior Tories on the record, Ian Duncan-Smith tonight, saying that's not a man who's confident in his story. And if he's not willing to put it himself up for interview, then perhaps his allegations should be treated with a bit of a pinch of salt.
OK, just very quickly to Pippa then. If there are those who want to keep on punching the bruise, as Harry put it, it comes down to numbers now, doesn't it? And this is what we don't yet know. And that's why the Sue Gray report might be critical in tipping that crucial number over the edge.
Yes, you need 54 letters to be put in to start a no confidence vote. A no confidence process. And last week it looked like they were getting there. But then, of course, Kristen Wakeford pulled back, defected, and the Rebels, the 2019 intake, pulled back from the brink. Nobody knows how many letters have already gone in, but certainly the MPs that I speak to, most of them seem to suggest those that are considering it are waiting for Sue Gray's report to come, not least because they think it will give them sort of cover, and possibly even further down the line. They want to see how the spring pans out. With the cost of living crisis and onto the May elections, they're very conscious that this is somebody that they supported in Boris Johnson. He was a great electoral asset to the Conservative Party, multiple election winner. And they feel that if that election asset turns into an electoral liability at the May elections, then they've got a valid reason for pushing him out there.
OK, Pippa, apologies for rushing you. Boris Johnson obviously needs to be seen as a global statesman right now, which is the other subject we're coming on to, those tensions which are rising on the Ukrainian-Russia border. Back with that story in just a moment. Well, welcome back. You're watching the press preview. With me now, Pippa Crerar and Harry Cole. Welcome back to both of you. So let's go to Ukraine, shall we? Some high-level meetings today, not least in NATO. This big phone conversation later on, Pippa, with the US president as well and European leaders. And what have we learned? What is Europe and the West prepared to do?
It's astonishing, really, that such an event which ordinarily would be on the front page of every newspaper and dominating every TV news bulletin. There's so much else going on domestically that isn't the case. But there was this big phone call tonight between Biden and the leaders of the European Union and NATO, Boris Johnson and other world leaders, about how they were going to address the Russian threat to Ukraine. As you'll know, we've already got some troops on the ground training forces, and we've sent over thousands of anti-tank guns, and other countries across Europe are sending a variety of jets and ships and all the rest of it to neighbouring countries. The big commitment is from the States, which has said that it's going to send, or has already sent, 5,000 troops to the Baltic states in Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia, and has got 50,000 more in reserve. Now, there's no suggestion that any of these are actually going to go into the Ukraine should Russia cross the border, but it's more about protecting the countries on the eastern flank. And this all sort of gets to the heart of the crux of all of this, which is that Vladimir Putin ultimately says that he's on the border of Ukraine because he's concerned about sort of the build-up of Western troops and Western presence in some of these countries. But by doing this, effectively, the West is kind of giving him the excuse, if you like, and making him feel emasculated and Russia feel more under threat by having sort of greater presence of Western troops there. Harry's shaking his head. I'm not justifying his action at all, but they're in this sort of kind of standoff situation where you have this massive threat determined to sort of take over. They've obviously annexed the Crimea already in 2014 and now sort of on the brink of doing the same with the rest of the Ukraine. Big threat to its neighbours and in a really difficult
Pippa,
position where both sides will use it themselves.
Sorry to interrupt you. We've only got 20 seconds left. Just very quickly, the PM, gloomy intelligence, almost trying to appeal over Putin's head to the Russian people, saying this is going to be another Chechnya for you.
Yeah, really interesting tonight is that actually perhaps things are moving quicker than anyone even thinks. We've got James Heappey, a defence minister, tomorrow writing for us, who has said we are becoming aware of a significant number of individuals who are assessed to be associated with Russian military advanced force operations who are already located in Ukraine. So I think we'll be hearing a lot more about that tomorrow, the fact that actually perhaps this is really now on the cusp of happening.
OK, very interesting. We will talk more. Thank you both very much indeed. Pippa Crerar, Harry Cole, thank you for that. Good to see you both. And both of you staying with us right through the 11 for all the very latest on that military build-up, the problems on the border with Russia and Ukraine, and also the allegations, too, of the latest events at Downing Street with the Prime Minister. Back in